Undertone. This movie has a tagline of the scariest movie you'll ever hear, which I actually do not refute. This movie was creepy. Let's get into it. Hey guys, if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Leave me a comment down below because the algorithm likes that stuff, and so do I. So Undertone came out last year in 2025. It's a Canadian supernatural horror movie directed by Ian Tuason, who this is actually his directorial debut. So props to him. Like, if I was wearing a hat, I would take it off for you because this movie is directed so damn well. We have Nina Kiri, who plays Evie in the film, and you might know her from *Handmaid's Tale*.
Welcome to the Undertone podcast, where we talk about all things creepy. I'm your in-house skeptic, Evie Babbage, and I'm joined by my believer co-host, Justin Manuel.
You're gonna love this. I got something juicy.
Ooh, do tell.
So Evie is a woman who hosts a paranormal podcast with her friend Justin, where she is the skeptic to his believer. And after Evie moves back home to become the caregiver to her dying mother, she and Justin are sent recordings of a married couple experiencing paranormal noises in their home, drawing Evie into fear and paranoia. I've said this in every horror review that I've done. I am specifically massive into like theater of the mind movies, psychological horror movies, and movies that like to hold things back. Like, it's all about what you don't see that makes you scarier. So immediately when I hear about there's this film where it's based around like audio, that pricked my ears up, because when you show something too much, it's too much. Like, I love the first Conjuring movie, for example, but Conjuring 2, like, the first half of Conjuring 2 is one of my favorite movies, horror movies, and then the second half is like some of the worst, because they just start showing the nun and the ghosts, and everything became so over the top. Whereas you look at something like The Exorcist, it is everything you don't see that scares you, or like the power of some of the psychological effects that movie has on you. It's incredible. Now, one thing I will say is that this movie, just like The Exorcist in some ways, there's a big crowd of people that say these movies aren't scary, but that's because they're watching it with the lights on, maybe even on their phone or their tablet. Do not do this. If you're going to watch Undertone, please, I recommend get to as close as this experience as possible by being on your own, in the dark, a good pair of headphones. I promise you, this movie will give you such a completely different experience. It's the same with The Exorcist. Hey, even if you have a VR headset like an Oculus, you can possibly experience this movie on your own private theater in a VR headset. I watched The Exorcist in a VR headset and it scared the shit out of me. The more isolated you can make yourself visually and audibly, you're going to have a completely different experience and hear things you wouldn't normally hear in a movie like this. Okay, so the performances are, when I say the performances, it's really the performance of Nina Kiri is really, really good. She's paranoid, she is pregnant, and she's a skeptic, but she's seeing stuff that she can't really deny. She's hearing stuff that she can't really deny. And it's the subtlety of the things around her. And for me, they just nail all the scary stuff audibly, right? So babies crying, knocks and bangs, but nursery rhymes, specifically English old nursery rhymes, like Ring Around the Roses, London Bridge is falling down, Baa Baa Black Sheep. When you put that in a creepy setting and reverse it like they do in this movie, it gives me the willies. The film's so well shot, though. It's constantly sweeping left and right. When she's just sat at the table, you think, well, there's not going to be much movement with the camera, but there is. Like, it is incredible what they do in such a small space. It's only filmed within this entire house. And in fact, I don't think we see outside of the house. I think that's right. We might see an exterior shot, but I don't think we see anywhere else. I think it's one location. It's the sound design. It's the panning of the sound. It's the reverb used and the echo and the reverse sounds and all of that stuff. It's just beautifully done. As someone who's also a musician, I appreciate the importance of sound production and to have the different frequencies between these sounds laid out and the way that it's constructed. Incredible shit. Is it a perfect movie? Not at all. I do think the last 10 to 15 minutes gets a little bit convoluted and a little bit confusing and a little bit rushed, maybe. I feel like it did feel a little bit rushed towards the end, and it could have just let things simmer a little bit longer. Maybe start introducing things a little bit earlier to kind of spread it out. But you know how these supernatural horror movies go. There's always an ending that kind of disappoints you because how can you live up to the tension and the build up without it going anywhere that's abnormal or I guess supernatural? Things have to escalate, and unfortunately with supernatural horror movies, some of the best supernatural horror movies of all time have bad endings. Poltergeist, I will die on that hill and say that Poltergeist is probably the best supernatural horror movie, and it has a bad ending. It does. The second movie, Scary, and then it goes sideways and gets really fucking bad at the end. The Conjuring, really fucking bad at the end. Supernatural horror movies, especially for my own personal tastes, they just don't ever stick the landing, and unfortunately this one doesn't either. But it's what gets us to there that actually is some of the most interesting stuff. It's the build up, it's the tension, it's the not knowing where this is going that makes it scarier. For that reason, it might not have as much rewatchability, especially because it's all audible and you know what you're about to experience. There is that. There is a couple of jump scares, but they're done quite well. I'll actually applaud them for how well they've done that. And also the transition between general audio in the film to when she puts her headphones on for the podcast or to listen to a piece of audio through her headphones. The change there with the noise cancelling, it's awesome. Some really simple but effective effects are used in this movie. Flickering lights, taps coming on their own. But the one scary bit for this movie, and in fact, if you don't want to be spoiled at all for what the scares are in this movie, turn off now because I'm about to describe something that happens that makes you creeped out, and I kind of want you to experience that for yourself. So maybe switch off now and go and check out the movie because I do highly recommend this movie. But if you want to stick around, please do. I'm about to talk about something I don't want everyone to witness if they want to go in and actually feel the full terror themselves. So you know Father Karras in The Exorcist, he's the one that eventually goes out the window in The Exorcist. When he sees his dead mother sitting up on the bed in a beam of light, that to me is probably one of the scariest images on film to date. That scene, there's something about it that scares the shit out of me. It's something about an old woman that has passed on, or an old woman that is kind of scary looking, just sat up in bed, like looking at you, like what the fuck. I don't know what it is. I think she kind of does look like my great grandma though. And I was at a young age and I didn't quite understand like how age worked, and I kind of found old people a little bit scary. And I just have that memory of my great grandma passing when I was quite young, and so all of that is kind of up there in my head. And when you see an image like this, it's scary. And so what happens in this film? Her mother slowly lifts herself up in the bed, and it's out of focus, which makes it scarier for me. You can't quite see what she's doing. Is she looking at her? Is she looking at me in the TV? Like, what is she doing? Like, to me, that is some of the scariest, most subtle stuff. It's like The Strangers, right? But you see the stranger, one of the strangers stood far back, out of focus, just like blink and you'll miss it, and he stood there. Like, that to me is terrifying. It's why I love Halloween. He's the shadow. He is the darkness around our characters. He could be at any point, anywhere. And to me, that's the scary things, right? That's the theater of the mind scary shit. It's better than having some like stretchy faced ghost run at the camera for a split, like, oh, and then it's gone. You're not scared anymore, and it just happens on repeat, and they rinse and repeat it. When it's done like this, because it's just to make you feel on edge, not make you jump, It's what it makes you feel rather than what your physical reaction is. That's the scariest stuff. It ultimately turns into a immersive kind of oral nightmare. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on this director. I think he's absolutely awesome. He did do the screenplay as well. But the cinematography is done by a Graham Beasley. I love the cinematography in this movie, and I can't find anything about this guy. Again, people behind this movie, I'm definitely going to look and keep my eye on them because it's a smaller budget movie. I think it's $500,000 and it made 20 million. You can make a movie on a smaller budget. Not that I have $500,000 just tucked away somewhere. However, you could buy my psychological horror book called Trauma House on Amazon, and maybe you can get me enough money to turn this into a film. Anyway, yeah, so I loved this film. I thought it was great. It was spooky. The ending wasn't, up to scratch as much as I wanted it to be, but it's a supernatural horror movie. I kind of have to give it a pass on reflection of all supernatural horror movies. Guys, leave a comment down below if there's a supernatural horror movie that sticks the landing. The only one I can really think of that's not really a supernatural horror movie until the end. It's not really a horror movie, is it? Really? I mean, it kind of is. I'm rambling, but Sixth Sense is probably one of the better endings because it's focused on a twist rather than trying to ramp up anything. But that film is also not exactly rewatchable once you know that twist. Trying to wrap my brains to think of one, but it's very few and far between. I'd say maybe the Blair Witch Project is yeah. I'd say the Blair Witch Project is probably one as well. Even though people don't like that movie anymore for some reason, like there's a huge crowd of people that do not like Blair Witch. They say it's rubbish, and I'm like, you don't understand what that did when it came out, guys. I'm gonna give Undertone 3.5 stars out of 5. Let down by its ending, but other than that, it's a great movie. Go and check it out for yourself if you're a big horror fan. And with that being said, guys, I will see you with the next one. Take care of yourselves.